see you guys in the dark.
My local internet cafe is not much of a sight to behold. I think that's what may have contributed to it shutting down for a couple months back in June. The exterior was reminiscent of an abandoned shack, with its appearance and broken windows. However, after they cleaned up the inside, I definitely saw some improvement. Sparkly, clean tile floors and beautiful mahogany countertops filled the cafe with a sense of ease and elegance. I always got plenty of work done in there, so the shop's grungy look never bothered me so much. But it was nice to have a change of scenery once the cleanup was done. I was probably the only one regularly at the cafe, venturing in on almost a daily basis. Plenty of other folks cycled in and out, but nary a familiar face would show up. This was fine, since I only went there to edit my vlogs and website on occasions. Striking up a conversation with someone recognizable was not on the agenda, ever. I was there for some much-needed peace and quiet, not small talk. Though I had Wi-Fi at home, the thin walls there did little to muffle my father's drunken ramblings. The cafe was my escape from the unwanted noise. I strolled in on a Saturday morning, just 5 days after the grand reopening. I was feeling pretty groggy, still recovering from a cold I caught during the week. The humid August air didn't help matters. Because of this, I decided to grab a coffee before getting my things set up. I walked across the glimmering, newly placed floors and heard them squeak under my sneakers. I laughed a little to myself, almost tempted to start turning in place just to hear the sound a few more times. No, I told myself, you gotta grow up sometime. I ordered my coffee and took a look around the room while I waited for it. I took a mental note of how many faces were in the cafe with me. I was surely going to grab a quiet little table in the corner, away from these strangers. Small iced regular, the barista held out my coffee and straw. Thanks, I said plainly. I threw down a couple of quarters as a tip and strolled on over to a table I wanted. I spent the next few hours clipping and splicing my videos from the days previous. I was doing a week-long series about the gym I go to. Basically workout tips and some comedy bits with my buddy Jake, who works the front desk. I found myself laughing out loud over a protein skit he had done. I have drawn some attention to my little corner of the room. Though the staring eventually subsided, I felt it best for me to leave, as I had been there much longer than usual. I reached down and unplugged my laptop charger, and that's when my hand brushed up against something. Confused, I took a look under my table to investigate. A 16-inch black bag sat there, just where my feet were settled. It had pockets and a shoulder strap, as well as an abundance of dust coating the leather. Holy crap, I thought to myself. Someone must have left their laptop behind or something. At first, I was going to do the right thing. I very easily could have handed it to the barista and called it a day. I guess maybe that would have been the smart thing to do. However, a mixture of curiosity and stupidity came over me, keeping me from being honest. Instead, after packing up my own things, I swung the mystery bag over my shoulder and swiftly exited the cafe. Stupid. I pulled into my driveway about noon, the hot summer sun beaming down on my front lawn. My father was doing his usual half-assed inspection of the plants in the garden, beer can in his hand. I tried to get into the house without a word of him, but he stopped me just as I opened the storm door. Hey, why are you in such a hurry? He asked, taking a swig of his drink. Dad, I don't have time. Important website business, you know. Well, he slurred. Don't stop on my account. But you just stopped me, I thought to myself. I pushed through the front door, passing my sleeping mother on the couch, and darted upstairs to my room. Slam! I shut my door hard behind me and locked it immediately. I tossed my belongings and newly found goods onto my bed and kicked my shoes clear across the room. I was excited to dig into this lucky haul. Carefully and slowly, I unzipped the top of the bag and pulled it open. I gasped a little to myself. Despite the appearance of the bag, the contents were no joke. A shiny, brand new looking laptop was nestled nicely inside. I pulled it out and observed it with awe. I was certainly nicer than my basic 500 gig HP with a big box store. I couldn't believe what I was holding. I flipped it open and began feeling the keys and the monitor. It was in mint condition. I had to be the luckiest guy in the world. Everything was there, including a charger and a wireless mouse. I even found a bag of screen wipes at the bottom. I also dug into the pockets, curious as to what treasure I might find in there. What I found was a cell phone. Nothing special. Just some cheap Android phone. It was still powered on and had no screen lock on it. Exploring it further, I noticed there were no texts and only one recent call to an out-of-state number. Being into electronics, I went into the settings to see what kind of operating system it had. It was vastly out of date on software, still set in some variation of the Lollipop operating system. That's all right, I thought. I could still flip it for a quick $10 or so. I placed it on the bed next to the laptop and sat for a moment, trying to take in what I had found in front of me. This was such a great find, but I needed to power on the laptop and figure out what I was working with. To my excitement, there was no login screen. I was in immediately after booting it up. I was never into laptops as I was phones, but I could tell right away I was not working with your standard stock operating system. This thing resembled more of a modded setup that I had seen kids working with back in high school, but I couldn't name it off the top of my head. Luckily, it was simple enough to navigate. I set it up with my Wi-Fi and dived right into the file storage to get some idea of whose computer I had. I was disappointed for just a few minutes, but after clicking around a bit, I did find a folder labeled A. Inside was one JPEG, titled 1 by 1. Intrigued, my stomach did a little flip as I opened the image. I was puzzled by what I found. It was a screenshot from a website. It looked like a post from some forum, from a user named Anon4, with nothing but phone numbers listed and 0 replies. Underneath the list was the tagline, "You know who you are." Scanning the image for answers, I noticed the address bar for the site. It seems to be a nonsense string of characters followed by a .onion extension. Onion? Wasn't that a parody news site or something? I wasn't too sure, but I decided to dig it up. I clicked on the X at the top, taking me back to the desktop. That's when I noticed another file. This one was labeled Pics, which stirred up some more thrills in my bones. Yes, I cheered to myself. This could be more likely to reveal the owner's identity. I became disappointed as I clicked through the pictures. There was no human life, just shots of different places and scenery. This included the image of a dark barber shop, a path in the woods somewhere, and even someone's garage. What really caught my eye was the last picture. It was the cafe. My stomach started doing acrobatics now. My heart was racing. Why were there random pictures in this thing? Why was there a screenshot of a message board with a list of phone numbers? The files just weren't adding up for me, but I hatched a half-baked plan. I didn't know if it was going to end the mystery, but I couldn't help but pry. I pulled up the pic with the phone numbers, grabbed the Android phone, and dialed the first number on the top of the list. After only 2 rings, I was greeted with silence. Strange, I thought, but I pressed on. I dialed the next number on the list. This time, it rang 5 times before I got a generic inbox greeting with the phone number listed. Interesting, but I hung up before I heard the beep. I grew bored of dialing random numbers. I decided to take a break and put the laptop and cell phone away for a little while. I knew I'd come back to it later. Once the evening rolled around, I waited for my parents to go to bed and then fixed myself up a snack. This was pretty much a nightly routine of mine. I clicked on the TV as I usually did and settled on the first news channel I scrolled to. This is when things took a turn for the weird. A breaking news story was displayed on screen, one from the next town over. Young barber, age 25, found murdered at work. Damn, I shook my head. That sucks. A female news reporter was on the scene, outside of the barber shop where it took place. Wait a second. I couldn't believe my eyes. That barber shop. It was the same one from the pic on the laptop. I was sure of it. I put my plate down on the coffee table and raced upstairs to grab the computer. I booted it up, clicked on the folder of pictures, and then the photo in question. I ran back downstairs with the laptop in hand and held it up to the TV screen. Yes, it was definitely the same barber shop. Wow, what were the chances of that? I was shaking my head in amazement. I finished watching the news story and began feeling tired. I was about ready for bed, so I grabbed my remote. The news story just after grabbed it my attention before I could hit the power button. Cold murder in local forest. This was also nearby, just over the bridge in the opposite direction. This world is terrible, I thought. I hadn't seen two stories like that back to back in a long time. That's when it hit me. I scrolled over the picture of the woods in the same folder. Then I waited to see if the news story included the location of the homicide on video. Though I didn't get anything solid to compare it to, I was definitely getting weird vibes. First a barbershop, and now a forest? I had to be grasping at straws. I decided it was bedtime. I had a pretty restless night of sleep, tossing and turning and kicking my covers to the foot of my bed. It was hot and humid, and I kept waking up with the sweats. Needless to say, I was in dire need of coffee the next morning. I was probably smart to leave the strange laptop at home, grabbing my own equipment as I headed out the door. I drove rather quickly to the cafe, eyelids still very heavy. I got my regular coffee and sat down at my favorite booth in the corner. Only one other person resided in the building apart from the baristas at work. It was nice and quiet and felt peaceful. A good contrast from my evening snack and sweaty night of interrupted rest. Still, my mind couldn't help but wander. The web address from the screenshot I found came rolling into the forefront of my thoughts. What was that onion domain all about? Why did the web address make no sense? It was something like code influx, with random numbers and symbols after it. This was meaningless to me. I decided to do some research. I couldn't recall the exact website, but I remembered the .onion extension, so I started from there. I was immediately blown away. Apparently, what it pertains to is web addresses not reachable on normal servers. It takes you through something called Tor and is used for some pretty shady activity. I guess it involves what's called the dark web. I'd heard a little bit about this before. I was beginning to feel sick. The website listed on the wiki were pretty revolting, to say the least. Nothing I would ever want to be involved in. The worst part? I was beginning to think the laptop I found was used solely to access this part of the internet. I couldn't bear the thought of being in possession of it any longer. I had to do something. I stormed out of the cafe, ready to spring into action, when I was stopped by a tap on my leg. I looked down to see a homeless-looking man in a black tattered leather jacket sitting up against the front of the building. His face looked rough, complete with a badly shaven beard and cracked lips. He looked miserable. He held out a small plastic cup, looking up at me with desperation in his eyes. "Spare change, sir?" "I'm in a hurry, dude. I don't carry cash." "Please," he begs me some more. He reached out and grabbed my pant leg. "No, get away from me." I kicked his hand away immediately. The guy looked upset. His eyes were actually watering a little bit. I felt a little bad, but damn, don't grab me like that. That's when the guy did the strangest thing. He took out a phone and started taking pictures of me. "What are you doing now?" I asked, confused as all hell. He didn't answer. All I could do about it was run to my car and leave as fast as possible. What was that guy's deal? I called my friend Peter on the way home. I knew he would have some more insight on this whole thing. I was hoping I could bring him to my house and have him wipe the computer clean. Then I could sell it to a random Yahoo and be done with this whole misadventure. Once I picked up my friend, I sped back to my house and showed him what I found in the cafe. He was blown away. This thing is lethal, he laughed. It looked pretty customized, honestly. Yeah, I noticed that, but take a look at these. I clicked through the photos, showing him the ones that I compared with the news story. So, you think this laptop has some sort of connection to the murders? I don't know, man, but I think there's something fishy going on. He shrugged and took over the mouse for a moment. Where's the picture of the phone numbers? It's somewhere in the file storage. Yep, click there and bingo. Peter stared intently at the list and address bars in the shot. He also checked the file description and saw that the screenshot originated from a laptop. So it was taken from within the device. My hairs were at attention, all up and down my skin. So, you tested these numbers out? Yeah, with this phone. I handed him the cell phone that came in the bag with the laptop, and he scanned through it rapidly. Definitely a track phone. Something bought as a burner, I guess. Possibly for some sort of business task. Shall we try another phone number? I nodded and pointed to the one just below the numbers I tested out. He dialed it in and threw it on a speakerphone so we could both listen in. It rang and rang. It didn't stop ringing, so we hung up after the 8th ring. Peter looked at the phone funny and then up at me. I don't know what's up with all of this. Did you want me to just factory reset everything? Yeah, I mean, is that going to take care of my problem? Not sure, but I think I'd like to have some fun with this before I call it a day. I gave him a look, a glance of disagreement. I didn't think that would be in our best interest. I don't think we should be messing with this dude. Come on, what could go wrong? You could even film it. This could go viral. Well, I'm not going to vlog me hanging around with a stolen laptop. Just do what you gotta do with it, and let's move on. Peter smirked, looked at the screen again, and then dialed another number from the list. Again, he got nothing. This time, just another generic voicemail box greeting. He continued on to the next phone number, and halfway through dialing, he stopped. His eyes were scanning the screen. His face was now white as a ghost. What? Why did you stop? Are you okay? This is my phone number. My heart panged like a club on a gong. That can't be right. I scooted over next to Peter and observed the screen. He was right. Just to be sure, he finished dialing and hit send. He put the phone up to his ear and waited. Just as he suspected, his pocket lit up, and his ringtone sang away. We both looked at each other in shock. Dude, my hands were shaking, and my mouth was agape so far. I think my jaw was brushing my bed sheets. How? Is all Peter could muster up from his racing thoughts. This is unreal. I don't like this at all. Just wipe the hard drive and let's be done with it. Wait, he shouted while looking at the screen again. My heart sank some more. I had a feeling about what he was going to say. What? Don't tell me. He didn't say a word. All he did was start frantically dialing another number. That's when I felt it. My pocket was now vibrating. I gulped so loud that I flinched. I reached down and pulled out my phone and answered. I held it up to my ear. Peter, I said through the receiver, looking at my visibly shaken friend across from me. This is messed up, he responded through the burner phone. I ended up driving Peter home shortly after. He had handed the phone over and told me he wanted to leave and take everything in. He left the laptop with me and told me he'd rather not mess with it. We decided to meet up at the cafe and drop it back off right in the morning. We'd wake up early and hopefully be the first ones in. However, I missed my alarm. Apparently, I also missed 10 calls from Peter. I opened up my messages and noticed the 4 text messages that he sent. Damn, I had to get going and fast. I had already packed up everything the night before, so all I had to do was throw on a t-shirt and shorts and head to the cafe. As I turned the corner to where the cafe was, I had to hit the brakes pretty quickly. What I saw on that road was nothing but cops and ambulances. There were roads blocked up on either side of the ambulances, and the cafe was barricaded. What in the... I was thinking out loud. This was crazy, There were people with their hands on their faces, looking scared and sad. I pulled over into the grocery store parking lot across the street and then walked over to the scene to get a closer look. I assumed Peter was doing the same thing. I ended up in a crowd of onlookers next door, looking at the scene before us. There was blood splatter on the front of the doors of the cafe and some papers, among other belongings strewn all about. More blood covered the ground. Jesus, this was a damn massacre. I could hear the people beside me whispering to each other about what was going on. They're talking about a possible serial killer, one woman said to her friend. The kid was about to walk in, and suddenly bullets came in from all over. Nobody saw who fired the shots. A guy filled his wife in about what he witnessed. I was too curious to just be craning my neck from back there. I needed a closer look. I peered over at the cops who were busy questioning a barista by the ambulances. I crept past the barricade carefully. I slipped past a couple other baristas and made my way to a second ambulance by the other barricade. The stretcher was in view now, but I couldn't tell who was in it. I decided to kneel down beside the ambulance and hopefully catch some conversation between the EMTs. I took out my phone and started recording. We lost him. He wasn't hanging in there much when we got here, but I was hoping for him. Jan, it's not your fault. You saved the girl. You can't save them all, you know. I wish I could. I heard him talk before he let go, you know. He told me his name was Peter. My hand jumped over my mouth as I let out the weirdest sound. It was a gasp, combined with a grunt of disbelief. No, it couldn't be. Yeah, the other EMT said. We gave his information already. Guess he was an IT guy for a local business. Smart kid, early 20s, I guess. I stumbled back a bit on my heels, dropped my phone in the process. I bumped into something solid behind me and stood up quickly. I turned around and saw that same homeless guy from the other day. My face was still contorted from the information I just received from my eavesdropping. The guy was just staring at me, stoic. He didn't even react to me bumping into him. He was glaring at me from behind, an unchanging expression. I couldn't help it. I booked it across the street to my car. I could feel tears forming in my ducts, eyes twitching in the wind from the open driver's side window. Why did I have to wake up so late? Maybe Peter could have been spared from whatever this was. A drive-by? An assassination of some kind? My head was dizzy. My heart was hurting, and I was beginning to make some connection. The pictures on the computer, the phone numbers, the murders, everything. I was getting an idea as to what it was I was dealing with. The stuff about the dark web, the strange laptop, and the phone numbers. I arrived home, heartsick as hell. My friend was murdered today, and I couldn't stop it. Maybe if I had never grabbed the computer from the cafe, he'd still be alive. Maybe if I hadn't been so stupid, I could have handled this whole thing differently, and he wouldn't be dead right now. To top it off, I realized I left my phone at the bloody scene. I groaned and threw my head back in the driver's seat. Now what? Well, my phone is near some cops and the EMTs. Maybe if I call, they'll believe I dropped it before they got there, and I won't get in trouble. I reached back and grabbed the burner phone out of the bag and started to dial my phone number when I suddenly had a thought. If the phone numbers were dialed somehow had something to do with the murders, that must mean... I grabbed the laptop out of the bag, my heart racing and body profusely sweating in fear. This whole thing was unreal. The fact that I was right in the middle of it was even worse. I clicked on the folder of the pictures of scenery from earlier. Again, my eyes scrolled through across the picture of the barbershop, then the forest. Finally, my eyes got to the picture of the cafe. Yes, the phone numbers in these locations have to somehow be tied together, but I didn't know how. Why was this happening? I was about to leave the folder, but then a small thumbnail at the end of the list of pictures caught my eye. I hovered the cursor over it and opened it up. With some cloud service, the image was revealed. My jaw dropped in utter horror. A picture of my house. I was looking at a picture of my front yard and home. I hadn't noticed this before. Why hadn't I noticed this? Over in the top corner was a link. one that opened up the full cloud folder from some email made up of more gibberish characters. This folder contained more pictures. Pictures that were very different from the others. "No way," I shouted out loud, face contorted in anger and fear all at once. Pictures of me looking directly at the camera, others of my car. The last ones were me of sneaking into the crime scene at the cafe. That guy, that homeless looking guy from the other day, and behind the ambulance. I have his laptop. He was watching me. How did he tie into these murders? My silent tirade was interrupted by the sudden sound of a jingle to my right. The phone was ringing in my passenger seat. I picked it up and peered at the phone number. I couldn't handle this anymore. I just couldn't take it. It was my own phone number. Grudgingly, I decided to swipe and answer the call. Who is this?" I stammered. A gravelly voice answered from the other end. "Spare change, sir?" I had 3 aliases which I used, but only a close online friend of mine knew that all were mine. Nathan was my main link to the dark web, since he somehow spent more time on it than I did, even when the only thing I did other than ghosting him was playing Halo with him for my friends list. What I liked about him is that neither of us mentioned our last names or any real information, even though we both could have looked it up at the time and found pretty much whatever we wanted about the other person. That being said, I trusted Nathan more than almost anyone, and he knows more about this story than I'll be willing to admit on here. During university, I roomed with a local dealer who, unknown to the education board that expelled him, worked for me. It was freaking easy to order narcotics online like MDMA and X if you knew where to look. I even had them shipped to my dorm room's local P.O. box at one time without anyone being any of the wiser. I'd get them online. My former friend would use his real-life connections to sell them once I didn't really have any of my own. This was around the time that I felt that I held all the cards, and no one could touch me if they couldn't track my IP address. I was in the second year of my biomed course when I got into the stupid shit. Scumbag pieces of crap would be sharing snuff videos online that would make even the most messed up pornography you laid eyes upon look freaking like white bread. This was why I only used links that I either found myself, or more often the ones that Nathan had given me. We would spend days, literally days, just marveling at all the crazy shit which people could get away with. Yeah, the government had shut down the main sites like Silk Road and Mad Onion, but those were like the only ones that the idiots online seemed to ever take notice of. Other hackers would message me on forums asking for sites to get weed and other drugs from, which was as simple as pointing in a freaking direction. The university claimed to monitor internet traffic to stop people from doing freaky things online after they heard people were hacking students' accounts and ruining online schedules. But I guarantee you that they did absolutely nothing to people who were actually doing it. Note, I'm not confessing to having done any of these acts. I just know exactly which individuals have done it. By third year, I had made enough money to have a long screen setup of my own, which made decrypting sites' details a lot quicker for me. And I actually had gotten pretty good at it. I had been delving around some messed up sites, and to be honest, I'd even talked in chat rooms to some of the admins in charge of them. You'd be surprised how normal a child actor site owner would actually seem if you didn't know he also had a day job. I got more curious, though. Stupid me. After nearly 10 years of seamless making my way out of the dark web, I joined Nathan as well as a few others in the chat room, just screwing about and sharing some screwed up sites. Might sound weird, but for me it's a pretty everyday thing to do. Nathan and another friend were talking about some site that no one had managed to get past the encryption, to apart from one of the other people who's even more of a no-life than me. The rest of us are pretty sure he's autistic or some crap, because the site he shared with us was arguably the most vile thing I've ever laid eyes upon. For those of you still with me, this is why I'm posting this here. This guy is the most cancerous and revolting sector from the darkest part of the deep web. It is a scar that I bear to this day, and it is one that I will never, ever forget. The site had a subheading in the HTML. The autistic dude was in the chat room earlier, gave Nathan and I an encrypted URL for us, but he was too freaking giddy about getting through to the site himself to send us an encryption. So Nathan and I had to manually go through the whole process ourselves. We tried for hours. Nathan and I had been doing this for the entirety of our adult lives, yet we've never seen code like this before. Come to think of it, I doubt that the other guy in the chat cracked this by himself. Nathan and I both called it a night, so I left the command prompt open and went outside to smoke. Nathan remained on the chat so we can play Anvil, but when I got back, his microphone was muted for some reason. For people like us who had nothing to hide from each other, we almost never muted our mics. I waited a few minutes, thinking maybe he was jerking off or maybe gone to do something. Nothing. I don't think much of it. My brain is too occupied with the cannabinoids flowing through my bloodstream. I sat down and took another look through the code, thinking there was something that I missed. I did. The code was completely different this time, completely unencrypted. I simply launched the URL and my PC Word for a little bit, until finally opening up about 20 windows across my two monitors, all of them scrambling code through a debugger that I had installed. Even with 32 gigabytes of RAM, my computer was making more noise than it ever did doing this kind of stuff. I thought to myself, shit, I'm going to have to OC my shit in the BIOS if I was going to have a shot of getting through. And I was not feeling up for it after smoking too much. I get ready to hard reset before my monitors turn off, and back on one at a time. This was when I started getting a bit paranoid and was thinking about just letting it go. I wish that that's what I did. The windows were almost all gone. Only 4 still were there, and 2 of them were normal deep web sites that the admin probably used to relay the IP address through. First site that I had seen do that. All of the text was a dark red and extremely primitive for a site that I thought would be at least a little bit more impressive considering its security. The main center window had only a small amount of text on the screen. If you made it this far, you know what you were in for. If you still don't, you don't belong here. Even though I was feeling mellow, the text and sheer awe of what I was getting myself into pierced me with fear. A simple Y/N prompt popped up on my window. I accepted, ready for whatever awaited me on the other side. A chat room window came up to life in the second remaining window. I was wondering what it was for. Perhaps another IP relay, or a shadow app that hid the true nature of the site behind it. It simply stated, /insert name, as well as an optional password that I'm still not sure what that was for. The fact that people might have accounts on this kind of site. Looking back on it, it's pretty fucked up. I used my most recent alias, Diablo. A couple more scrolls of red text flew up the window, and then it opened up into an actual sort of chat room like you'd see on Omegle or some crap like that. Except with no ads, or color, or anything besides the dark red text. The chat was a bit more advanced than the first window, which was now frozen and wasn't responding to any console commands I was using. I have to say, the feeling of finding this site in the first place felt pretty awesome. I couldn't wait to tell Nathan. That was until the chat window popped up with names. One that I recognized was his, using one of his aliases as well. I'd say about 36 people were in the chat room. No names that I can remember. And even if I did, I wouldn't dare reveal them. Not after all this. I tried calling Nathan on my phone, but he obviously wasn't picking up. We're so screwed. It was stupid of us to delve this deep without even knowing what we got ourselves into. Users definitely had met before, as they immediately started posting messages to the window, as me and Nathan remained silent. As they were casually talking about stuff, I was starting to calm down a bit. Maybe this was just a stupid cult website that talked about organizing deals or other dumb stuff that I found in the past. It all seemed so normal. So why all the obscurity? The first window, still blank and unresponsive, suddenly began loading up a video file of some sort. A snuff video, perhaps? It would make sense to hide one, but not this extensively, and the chat room didn't make much sense. I wish this stuff had been going through my head at the time, if I wasn't retarded enough to get stoned before going through this. I felt tempted to ask the other users what the video was about, but I was afraid that might give me away as someone who's not supposed to be there. Nathan hadn't said anything either, so I wasn't going to risk doing something suspicious like that. I got the guts to ask, "What are we all here for, thanks?" Trying to sound as eccentric and dim-witted as I could. I didn't get a response from them. As a matter of fact, no one said another word. Nathan stayed quiet, but I assumed that he noticed me in the chat as well, now that I'd posted. The video had stopped loading and had begun playing. Some more messages from the other users sharing their anticipation as footage of a dark gray basement somewhere took shape on the screen. The resolution of the video was pretty awful at first, but rendered pretty well after about 30 seconds. I was scared shitless. No one else was in my house. Most of my roommates had left for summer vacation, and I didn't head home for another 2 weeks. I was alone in the dark with little else but the ambient sound of whatever was happening behind the camera in the video. It stayed like this for about 4 or 5 minutes. I spent every second of it staring at the screen, waiting for something to happen. Finally, a dude steps onto the screen holding up a whiteboard with foreign letters on it, as well as the words "cold body" underneath. The guy was freaking ominous to look at, pretty overweight, and what only could be described as a motorbiker's beard. The man spoke. I had no idea what he was saying at first. He was speaking in Chinese, I think, but I don't really know. I'm not a fucking linguist. Luckily for Nathan and I, the man had another person behind him who spoke some broken English. "Hello, users. Welcome to Cold Body Show." I think that's what he said. I was honestly more interested than scared at this point. This video looked like it could be something worth showing to others. That thought never crossed my mind again. The man with the broken English bursts into tears and sobs out of nowhere. He sobs in front of the camera and jerks around in what I can only guess was desperation. The man holding the sign yells at the guy in Chinese before another man enters the frame and puts a gun to his head. Before I can even realize it was a gun, the man fired. He didn't stop there. Pressing the barrel of the gun against the dead man's temple, he fired again and again, each shot spraying blood and what I guess were mere pieces of the skull all over the place. Okay, so a shock video. Not much out of the ordinary here. That was when I stared at the chat window again. The users were talking about what they would do next. Users were all typing in different languages, but almost all of the English ones that I read said, "Shoot him again." I realized then that I wasn't watching some shock video or stupid snuff film that the admins had hid behind the wall of proxies. This was a live stream. I was watching a live stream of people getting murdered in front of me. We all were. I type into the chat, "You sick fucks. And what the heck are you guys doing?" But the texts weren't responded to because so many people were spamming the chat with foreign text that I couldn't read. Another person is brought out in front of the camera, this time already sobbing and trying to break free of the ropes that had been bound around her ankles and wrists. She was bare naked and covered in bruises and cuts. I didn't do anything but wait for the inevitable. The man shot her in the head and watched her body fall limp on the floor. People in the chat cheered and asked for more. Someone picks up the camera and positions it in a different direction towards a metal table, covered with some sort of bin liner. The woman was dragged by the hair into the frame and placed on the table. What happened next? I don't think the world should know. I'm not kidding. The body was slumped on the table like a surgeon would do before operating on a person. Some more people, wearing red and black ski masks, went up to the body holding items varying from kitchen knives to cordless drills. I couldn't watch without feeling physically sick to my stomach. The men tore her apart limb from limb, stabbing at her torso and cutting her open. I take another glance to see one of the men having relations with the mutilated corpse. I almost immediately retched and almost vomit over my keyboard when I gained control of myself before that happened. My heart was beating like crazy. The whole situation was so messed up, and I was in way over my freaking head. By the time the men were finished, there was a literal stump of a human being left. Not that they could fucking call that a human anymore. Her head was torn off, the neck, and stuffed into her body cavity along with one of her arms. If it weren't for the other weird sights that I have seen before this, I might not have stayed as long as I did. 3 more people were brought out onto the screen, all of them screaming for their lives and trying to escape. One of them is shot in the leg. The others stand there shaking in place, trying not to scream again. The man holding the sign walks up to the lens of the camera and stares into it. I see his black eyes, blood splattered across his face. I breathe faster, and I actually had to look away. It was like he was staring right at me. He says something else in a foreign language, probably the same one as before. When he stops speaking, the chat window does the same. Hardly a single other post, just a chat window awaiting some response. About 20 seconds pass of him just staring into the camera after speaking. Nothing happens at first. The chat then mentioned me and Nathan by our usernames. More of them spam our names in posts that take over the scrolling message board. As soon as they mentioned our aliases, I started freaking out. I try to close the black windows, but every time I try, the window says the application is not responding. The live stream continues. The man staring at me and the message prompting me to say something. One of the few comments in proper English pops up. He's asking us which one to end first. I freeze for about 5 seconds before unplugging my computer from the wall. I didn't care about anything anymore. I just wanted to leave the site and never come back. I sat there with a blank screen in front of me for a bit before pacing around the kitchen. I was done with it. I didn't sleep at all. I was too traumatized to even think about resting after what I had seen. At the time of this happening, I was thinking about reporting the site to the police, but I, of all people, know that they can't do anything to stop this. To think that more of these sites could exist, that more people are getting gunned down and mutilated for entertainment, it's something that I can't freaking think about. I spent 2 days talking to some close friends about this stuff, though I left out all the details and just said I'd seen something disturbing online. They all know what I do in my free time, so they didn't think much of it since I'd mentioned snuff films and messed up sites before. They didn't know what Nathan and I had seen. I mustered up the courage to turn on my PC again, and I was fucking relieved to see no sign of any viruses, and most of all, no black window screens scattered on my desktop. I immediately go to check to see if Nathan had left me any messages on Radot. I had several messages from him with a few files attached to the second. I was hoping to talk this whole ordeal through with him, but the files immediately caught my eye. The attachments were pictures of me, stolen from my Facebook and email. Pictures of my old school, university, and even my friends here. The messages after were all my addresses, email, online aliases, and even the names of my family members. My IP address was posted to the bottom, and I realized how screwed I am. The last picture of me and my old girlfriend, with her IP address and details pasted on the top of the picture. There's no freaking way that they tracked me down. I take a few minutes to pull myself together before writing back. What the fuck? I didn't get a response, and I still haven't to this day. He has all of my details. He knows everything about me and my family, and I don't even know what else. I still don't know what has happened to him since I left that live stream. I can only pray that the information he has doesn't fall into the hands of those murderous, insane motherfuckers who killed and desecrated dozens of people on the darkest parts of the internet. I can't let them find me, or those that I care about. I will never go back to that part of the internet ever again. It's not safe for me, or you, or anyone else. The police can't find them, but they can find you. Don't try and find the site. Don't try and report the site. They will do to you what they did to me. And if you think that they won't find you, then remember that I was fucking invisible.
Hello, my name is Scott. I was recently diagnosed with depression, so my life was really bad lately. I still can't explain what happened to me yesterday. I don't think I'm safe right now, so I'm just going to get this out now. Hopefully people will learn from this Reddit post to never go on the dark web. So it was Sunday, May 12th, 2019, Mother's Day. Sadly, my mother passed away 7 years ago. Since I have nothing to do, I invite some friends over. Let me tell you that this friend was a ghost hunter. He basically loved all things scary. Fast forward 2 hours, and me and that friend are sitting at a computer, contemplating what we should do. My friend, being the bold man that he is, gives the genuine idea to go on the deep web. Now this is where I should have shut it down, but I was pretty drunk and bored, so screw it. We go on some video chatting web page with a random person with the username Dead and Decay. Stupid, I know. The user seems to be a male of the age between 20 and 25. He is out in the pitch black, walking to what seems to be his home. The odd thing that I noticed was that he was holding something on his shoulder. "Hey, can you keep a secret?" he says. Sure, man. What's up?" my friend says. "I just ended someone." He said some pretty graphic stuff after this. I'll spare you the details of what he said. My friend isn't fazed by this comment. I, however, am pretty spooked by this, mostly by the bag that he is carrying. He then comes to a sudden stop and drops the bag in what seems to be like a backyard. This looks very similar to my backyard. I know this because there is a very big hole with a patch of dirt, which is where I buried my dog last year. Out of curiosity, I got up out of my chair and went downstairs out the back door. Me, being the drunken idiot that I was, didn't bring a knife or my friend. Just a dusty-ass flashlight. What I saw when I walked outside still haunts me. I was hit with a rotten smell. I saw a skinny man digging up a hole where my dog was and taking his decaying body out of his resting place and putting another body in there. I tried to chase after him, but it was no use. I called the police, but nobody believed me. It is now 9 a.m., and I didn't go to work today. I'm writing this now because I think he's coming back to finish the job. Update. It's now 3:30, and I've seen the same white van pass my house around 5 times. It seems as if the driver is scoping out my house. These may be the last minutes, but if I don't make it, spread the word. Update 2. The van is parked outside my door, and a man is walking out of it, coming up to my door. I have my .44 caliber gun at my hip while typing this. The man is fiddling with my front doorknob. I feel as if there are my final breaths. I feel like ending it now and just jumping out of a window. I took a little break for a few days before I decided to go back in the true red rooms. I paid my Bitcoin and got sent a new passcode. It took a few days before they sent it to me, along with another username. I guess this is how they managed to keep it so secretive, so that way people couldn't be tracked. I put in my username and password on the first page. This particular red room number 2 brought you to another page that asked for my password. So instead of 1 page, it went through 2. I guess for extra protection. Bright red screen flashing big bold black letters read, "Live Dissections Incorporated." Underneath the black box was a list of IP addresses that were recorded. Beside each one were the words "permitted" or "banned." I assumed these people abused their privilege on this site, or possibly tried to hack it. They wanted those people to know that they were being watched. As for the rules written on the site, they were pretty simple. You can pick and choose from a list of surgical tools. There were cranium drills, bone saws, rib knives, all types of cutting and dissecting instruments. The list went on and on. You must keep paying Bitcoin to keep playing. You communicate what you have done to the victim through the chat box. You are not allowed to chat with other users or make comments to them. 5 users popped up in the chat box, including me. Your waiting time is 5 minutes, popped up on the black screen. Then the live stream began to start. I took a deep breath. A man who is obviously sedated and lying in what looks like an old green dentist chair. He is in a blue hospital gown. His wrists and ankles are strapped down. 2 people in doctor scrubs and masks were injecting him in the arm with 2 different needles. Then the messages started popping up in the chat box. One user typed, "I want to see an amputation of the arm, please." Another said, "Drill his head open and pull his skull down over his face like they do with the autopsies." Another user wanted a complete organ dissection. Other users typed in foreign language that I couldn't understand. Ugh, I wanted to puke at this point. I could see the poor man had labored breathing. They must have had him really sedated. All these people were sickly biting on what they wanted to see. The surgery that won was the arm amputation. I was glad I could not have to view the other 2. I don't think I could have stomached it. The user must have been paid the most Bitcoin. I saw one of the surgeons grab a scalpel as the camera zoomed in. Then he began to cut through the man's arm right through above the elbow. Yuck, the guy was alive, and dark red blood started gushing out of his arm onto the floor. You could see the muscle twitching underneath as the camera zoomed in on the pink, fleshy, bloody mess. Now, this user was typing in the chat box, "Yes, oh yes, this is freaking amazing. I'm getting off right now." What looked to be a huge towel or gauze pad was placed between the cut, open tissue, and stuck in completely through the arm. You could see it hanging out of the other side. The hairs on my neck began to stand up. He then began to move it back and forth through the tissue in a sawing motion. He was cutting the remains attached tendons and ligaments that I guessed. Suddenly, the man started to wake up and moan in pain. His eyes looked a bit squinty. He looked down and literally passed out. They injected him again with a needle. I wanted to look away. Another username, who seemed to know all the steps of an amputation type, "Use the bone saw and cut it off. Now!" What looked like to be a bone saw was picked up. It looked very eerie, with its sharp little teeth-like points. The surgeon gave a thumbs up to the camera and began to saw straight through. The saw hummed as I could see little particles of white bone going up in the air. Scissors were used to finish cutting away the globs of flesh still left in place, and just like that, the arm was pulled away. The surgeon tossed it towards the camera. It hit the ground with a loud splat. I wanted to turn the computer off. He was now an amputee. There was a lot of blood coming out. The victim started turning an ashen gray color. This guy was going to go and bleed out. "Do you want the artery to be clamped off, or do you want him to bleed?" Popped up on the message box in the chat box. One person typed no, and one of the users said, "Let him bleed out. He's not going to want to wake up after all of this." I couldn't believe how casual he was about leading this man to his impending death. I found myself yelling at the computer, "Clamp it off! Clamp it off!" I knew I wanted results. I would have to pay more Bitcoin, so I did. I typed in "clamp it, save his life." I was this poor guy's lifeline, while he was at the mercy of a bunch of crazy people who wanted him gone. My heart was beating out of my chest. I was sweating about to have a panic attack. "Kelly clamps," shouted the surgeon. I felt relief as he clamped the bleeding artery off. Thank God. Then the nub was dressed with gauze to stop the extra bleeding. Then the worst part was that the guy finally woke up. He was lying there for about 15 minutes, and the surgeons were slapping him on the face and laughing. Laughing. He was coming to, and in shock. I could see the surgeons undoing the straps and helping him sit up. How the heck would they laugh at what they just did to this poor man? They almost killed him, and took a part of his body away for no reason. For what? All for the expense of someone else's pleasure? It made me sick to my stomach. The man looked down, and his eyes bulged out. He looked to be in disbelief. "My arm!" he shouted, with a hoarse-sounding voice. I could see the nub moving as if it was trying to figure out where his arm went. His mouth hung wide open. The surgeons were patting him on the back. He began to cry. One of the surgeons mentioned for the camera to be shut off. Everything went black. The live stream was over. I shuddered. Unfortunately, I still had 3 more rooms to go. It started as a game, a joke, but I'm not laughing anymore. It's become my dark reality. It spiraled out of control quickly, and I'm still not totally sure what I got myself into. I know my day is coming, just not as soon as the other 12. Yes, there was 13 of us. Now there is just 2. Me and Jack, my best friend since day one, but Jack has become distant. I know it's too late to save him. The only thing I can do is save myself, although that might be impossible too. The first we heard of the game was from a few popular kids at my school, gossiping about this new crazy challenge on the deep web. Of course, they didn't actually know the extent. They heard about it from one of their cousins. My friend and I decided to go into it, and being curious guys we are. My more tech-smart friend Taylor had been on the deep web before. He knew his way around everything. It took a while, but he finally found the game. I couldn't tell you what it's called for legal reasons, but I can tell you what it entitles. The first thing they make you do in the game is take an oath. You must finish the game properly or face consequences. The oath was pretty innocent for the most part, but to prove our loyalty, we all had to cut our hands and send them a picture. We faked it and sent in a picture, but they can tell. They can always tell when you're lying. We had to do it for real. Every day it was a new challenge, each getting scarier and scarier. Each task makes you fall into a deep depression, close enough to want to end yourself. But you can't yet. They have a plan for all of us, or at least had a plan. The other 11 didn't follow the rules, just Jack and I. The challenges present themselves over the course of 30 days. I'm on day 20. Below is a list of things they've made us do so far. Wake up every 2 hours to watch a series of videos the conductors sent. Cut words into my arm. Make myself ill. Skip school for a week. Sneak out at midnight to go to a rave. Stay up continuously for 3 days watching horror movies. Take special pills. Stand on the side of a tall building. Nearly drown myself. Go mute. Block out all light from my room and stay in it for 24 hours. Meet a conductor in the woods for a ritual. Pour candle wax on myself and burn myself. Starve myself until day 17. Choke myself until I pass out. Drink until I'm numb. Eat only the food they give me. Stab myself in the leg. Listen to the music they send today is 20, but I haven't gotten anything yet. I will update you guys very soon. I started doing it on a whim. My brother has an unhealthy obsession with online vloggers. I can barely go a day without him linking me to a video of someone taking part in some sort of challenge or performing some social experience. So, when the whole deep web mystery box trend started, I was one of the first to know. My brother must have sent me dozens of videos of annoying preteens opening up boxes filled with junk that they tried to pass off as creepy and sinister. When my brother asked me for my opinion, I told him that it combined all of the boredom of unboxing videos with all the stupidity of the Tide Pod challenge. I added that most of them were probably making the boxes themselves. Even I could do this. And that's when the wheels started turning. A quick search confirmed that this was a growing trend, with hundreds of people claiming to have opened up boxes containing everything from drugs to weapons to mysterious flash drives. Some vloggers even claimed that they had spent thousands of dollars on a single mystery box. These were obviously fake. But what about the rest? Were there really people out there who could spend at least $100 for the chance to go viral? I bet that would, and unfortunately, I was right. Putting the boxes together was easier than expected. I had some cardboard boxes stuffed in my closet that turned out to be the perfect size for the job. Some rusty screwdrivers proved perfect as my weapons. My desk drawer offered as a surprising number of old flash drives that I made mystery boxes ready by filling them with as many creepy videos as I could download. Finally, some experienced sinus tablets would provide me with some mysterious deep web drugs once I had peeled the labels off. Getting the website set up on the deep web was a little harder, but you can find an online tutorial for anything these days. By the time I was ready to go to bed, I was the proud owner of the Emporium of Mysteries. For $50 worth of Bitcoin, anyone would be proud owner of a mystery box. Sure, the site looked like it had come straight out of the early 90s, but it was good enough. I was in business. The next morning I went looking for customers. Unfortunately, my brother's message had made me very familiar with the online vlogging community. I messaged a few of the smaller channels with some burner accounts I made, and left a few comments on their latest videos. You should go do a deep web unboxing video. You know what would really be cool? Unboxing something from the deep web. I'd bet you'd get millions of views. I heard about this new place on the deep web called the Emporium of Mysteries. They sell mystery boxes there. You should go check them out. Then all I had to do was sit back and wait. By the end of the day, I had 6 purchases. Not much all put together, but enough to help put food on the table. By the end of the afternoon, I had the boxes ready to ship. I wasn't looking to scam these people after all. They got to make their stupid videos, and I got to eat. Everybody was happy. I sold a few more over the next few weeks, but eventually, interest died down. Life went on. My brother sent me more stupid videos, and I gradually forgot about my time as a deep web merchant. Until last Friday. When I got home from work, there was a package waiting for me outside my apartment door. When I picked it up and examined it, I realized that it was one of my mystery boxes. It looked like I had an unhappy customer, but it wasn't like they were getting their money back. I took it inside and opened it up. It was empty, except for a flash drive that I didn't recognize. I was curious as to what was on it, but I wasn't about to let some disgruntled hacker infect my computer. So I dug out an old laptop that I hardly used anymore and plugged it in. It was full of pictures. Pictures of my hometown, of my apartment, and of me. Whoever sent me this had been following me, had been inside my home. Staring at those pictures, I started to realize just how out of my depth I was. You see, not everything you find on the deep web is fake. There are some people out there who do sell real mystery boxes, and they are tired of scammers like me taking away from their profits. Thankfully, they are very generous people and want to give me a second chance. So, I am pleased to announce that the Emporium of Mysteries is under new management. Now for the same low price, you will receive a genuine mystery box. It will include a special tool from my new partner's personal collection, along with a video instructing you on its use, co-starring myself. The body part or organ extracted during the video will also be included as a special memento. Supplies are limited, so search us out on the deep web as soon as you can. We look forward to your business. Ha 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 ha! I need to buy myself off the deep web before somebody else does. I don't know how much time I have. I saw the offer hours ago. The only thing I can do now is tell you how it happened upon myself. It's stupid, really. Really, really freaking stupid. I was trying to impress my friends. We were all enrolled in IT classes in our school. We would take turns seeing who would bring up the most messed up stuff we could find. It started out with showing our friends websites on the deep web. People would buy drugs from. Drugs that were never even heard of. They got boring real quick. Other friends began upping their content and try and stand out in the game of, I'm more tech savvy than you. They would bring more pictures, each more disgusting and gruesome than the last. Pictures of people dying. People being tortured in unimaginable ways. People that were already gone. One person brought upon a child site, a child snuff site. Instead of people saying exactly how messed up this was, and how this should all have stopped, and how this should have never began in the first place, and how stupid this was, and how much danger we were in at this point. They congratulated her, gave her pats on the back, asked her how she could even sit down properly in her computer chair because of how big her balls were. I felt like vomiting. I felt like beating the ever-living shit out of everybody that couldn't believe how fucked up it was to see finding child snuff on the internet as accomplishments. I didn't say anything, though. They began to notice that I never showed off anything myself. Pussy slowly became more my new nickname at school. School became a living hell for me. My friends began shoving those terrible pictures in my face whenever they could. When I cried and vomited, they claimed that they were trying to desensitize me. Everything became too much, though. I promised myself I wouldn't venture too deep, that I would only stay long enough to find something that could appease them. At this point, we were long past the point of finding cool drugs or whatever else we could. I knew I had to find something that could hold importance. At this point, I had been on the deep web for 3 hours. 5 hours was what it took to put an offer for me on the deep web. At one point, I remember opening up a seemingly blank web page. Immediately, the light next to my computer camera flashed briefly. 5 or so seconds. I minimized my browser to close photo booth. only to find that it wasn't even open. I didn't think anything of it. I was tired and had school the next day, so I closed everything and went to sleep. The next few days went the same as the last, until yesterday at least. When I walked in, everyone was huddled around one desk, talking in hushed voices. A few of the girls were crying, and all of them were pale and covered in sweat. I didn't want to see whatever had caused this reaction. Nobody noticed I had walked in until after class had started. I caught several of them staring at me during the class. They had probably planned a new way to make me go home sobbing. I tried to leave class as quickly as I could, but one of them caught me by the shoulder and spun me around. "We need to talk, dude." This voice was quivering, and his clammy, trembling hands were soaking through my t-shirt. He led me to the back of the classroom where other students in the same shape as him, or worse, were huddled. He began passing out pictures. When it was my turn, I told him that I didn't want to see whatever they had. "No, you have to see this." Something about the way that he said it told me that this was serious, and it wasn't just regularly bullying. I cracked open one eye. I saw a girl on the paper, along with some sort of description and a price. I opened my eyes further and saw that it was an ad of some sort. I thought, oh, this isn't that bad. It hadn't fully hit me yet, until I read what was on that description. "Hi, it's me again, back with some more for you guys. This one's look very young, with a bit of extra weight on her. I don't know, need to get more pictures?" I think it was her first time here. She wasn't protected at all. It was so easy. Enough about that, though. For now, her starting price is $118,000. We'll go up or down when we get more pictures and do the physical inspection. Anyways, we'll keep you updated. There was a picture of me, staring at my computer intently. I had no social media. The only picture of me were the ones I had taken with a group. There were so many emotions swirling through me. One that stood above all was confusion. The crippling fear was lurking in the shadows for now. How had this person gotten this picture of me? My mind went back to when the light next to my camera turned on. One question answered. Next, the paralyzing fear set in. I felt my heart stop completely, then beat violently in my throat and my ears. My stomach then dropped. My eyes searched furiously over the page for any information about me. I felt relief at the fact that my full name, along with my address, wasn't there. That all came crashing down when I realized that the person who had posted the ad had these, but chose not to put them in the description in case anybody wanted to grab me without paying. I knew without a doubt that the others were going to be sold too. I passed out. I woke up in the nurse's office, who told me I had a fever. My mom picked me up and took me home. I went straight to my room and locked the door. I haven't touched my personal computer since. I put tape over my phone camera, even though I know my efforts are futile. Everything I hear now is someone is out to get me. The only sick thing that comforts me now is that the pretty bitches that made me do this in the first place are going to sell quicker than me. When I was 12, I got into hacking, and I loved it. And I had gotten quite good at it. But my arrogance caused my unbecoming. You see, I was browsing some forum, and I came across something labeled the dark web. I was overcome with curiosity, so I clicked on it. The post covered everything from what is to how it is to access it. I, arrogant enough to think I won't get caught, proceeded to download Tor browser with no extra precautions, and started browsing it. All of a sudden, my laptop crashed. It froze, and I got hundreds of pop-ups warning me of a virus. Then it shut off. I stared in awe as I turned back on only with a green light turned on where my camera is. Someone was watching me. I got an enormous message on Skype that read, "You just made the biggest mistake of your life." "Who are you?" I responded while panicking and covering my camera with my thumb. "Your new friend." And then the chat just suddenly disappeared. I formatted my laptop and made sure there was no remaining malware or viruses, and had quite a couple of days after that. It was pretty relieved I thought I had defeated him, but sadly, I would come to know that wasn't the case. A week later, I was getting dressed in my room and was completely naked when I got a text on my phone that had no caller ID It said, "Come closer." Who's this? The text didn't faze me yet. I thought it was a wrong number, or one of my friends pranking me. Come closer. Closer to what? I was sure it was my friend messing with me at this point. To the camera. Huh? Which camera? Okay, which one of you assholes is this? I was confused, but I had told my friends about the incident a couple of days ago, so other than the anxiety growing within me, I was trying to convince myself that this was a prank. Laptop. I walked to my laptop, still naked, and the light by my camera wasn't on. I know you're either Zoe or Jack. I put down my phone and got dressed. My phone started vibrating uncontrollably. I had gotten 16 pictures. All of me. All naked. I screamed and threw my phone, ultimately breaking my screen. I went off the grid completely after that, with no social media, no internet for a solid year. It was mortifying, especially for a 12-year-old girl. When I got back on, I had no issues and no warning signs, and I was relieved until almost 4 years later, 16 at the time. I had gotten a new laptop and was at my boyfriend's house. We were studying together when it turned into a makeout session. I heard my laptop ding multiple times and had gotten annoyed and turned around to see what it was. I guess I must have looked like I had seen a ghost because my boyfriend started panicking and shaking me. It was him. He's back. Or maybe he's never left me. I started rewinding memories of all the times I've been undressing with my laptop on every time. I've shared something private during a Skype call, and I started having a panic attack. His message read, "Don't forget to use protection," as if I couldn't smell the irony in that. He then continued to harass me for the next 2 years, but it's been quiet for a year now, until about 4 hours ago. I got a text that read, "Let me in," and then I heard a knock on my door. My door was locked and deadbolted, so there's no way I'm leaving my apartment. It's safe in here. I called the police 3 hours ago, and no one has shown up. I called again 30 minutes ago, and still nothing. I called my boyfriend hours ago, too. He said he's on his way, but he's not answering his phone. Update. My boyfriend came over 5 minutes ago, and when he saw me breaking down crying, swore up and down that he didn't get a call from me, and we went to the police station together, and there's no record of my call. I don't know what to think, and I don't know what to do. One of the hottest trends on YouTube right now is ordering these random mystery boxes from complete strangers on the deep web and opening them up on camera. I don't know why I didn't realize a clear majority of these videos are fake and staged for their scare factor, but I didn't. I thought it was a great idea and hopped on the bandwagon to claim my YouTube stardom that I desperately longed for. For those who don't know a lot about the deep web, it's simply a part of the internet that isn't accessible from your basic Chrome, Firefox, or Explorer search engines. You must download the encryption program Tor and the Tor browser for starters. It's not illegal to access this part of the internet, but since it's anonymous, a great deal of illegal actions happen here. The possibilities are just endless. I grabbed my laptop that I've had since I graduated in 2011 and download the required programs. I prefer to use my laptop over my desktop in case of viruses and such. My 7-year-old laptop is a little more disposable. I had a little Bitcoin phase a few years ago when I was blowing up, so I had a little saved already. It wasn't much, only 0.1 Bitcoin, which translated to roughly $632 US. But it was enough for what I was looking for. After the downloads were finished, I opened the browser and started my journey at the Hidden Wiki website. They provide a lot of useful links to get you started on the deep web. I scrolled through the warnings and gists of what it was and found the links I was looking for. Almost forgot, I muttered to myself as I grabbed the duct tape from my desk drawer. I cut a tiny square piece off the end and placed it over my webcam. Call me paranoid, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. I clicked on the first link and waited what seemed like forever for the page to load. It was another very plain page with a list of popular websites that you could scroll through on the side. I continued my search through the web links until I found a page dedicated to mystery boxes. I wanted to find one around $500 so people knew I meant business on my channel. These were relatively small, staying around the 0.0125 to 0.5 Bitcoin range. I was worried about being scammed. I decided to continue my search after a quick bathroom break. When I came back, I noticed my cursor was off to the side and was able to click on a link that must have matched the background color of the web page because I couldn't see it. I indulged my curiosity and hit the link. I was taken to a pitch black page with small white text near the top. I'm selling one random package to any brave enough to receive it for only 0.12 bitcoins or best offer. Only one, huh? I thought to myself. I'll shoot my shot. What the heck? I hit the small payment button and was asked how much I'd like to spend. I entered 0.1 bitcoin with fingers crossed. The payment went through without any hesitation, and I was instantly met with a chat box asking where I'd like my package sent. I know this wasn't a good idea, and I regret it to this day, but the other YouTube channels use their own address often, so I thought nothing of it. I gave them my home address on the webpage. I waited over a month for the box to come in, 36 days to be exact. It arrived directly on my front porch, and was wrapped numerous times in red tape. I set my camera on the tripod and adjusted it to show me and the box on the small wooden table. I draped the sheet in a background, so it looked a little more professional. I collect some gloves and scissors so I can bang the video out in one go. Hey everybody, welcome to tonight's vlog. Boy, do I have a surprise for you. I continue my monologue, mentioning how I got the box and how much I paid. Without wasting further time, let's open this deep web mystery box. I grab the scissors and cut along the red tape. I make sure my gloves are on tight, and I rip open the box. My brow furrows as I see one book. Without saying a word, I take the book out of the box. I was pretty pissed I spent over $600 on a book. Well, folks, looks like we got us a dud. These pages better be made of gold. The outside of the book was old and tattered, and it smelled of mildew and mold. I cracked open the book on the first page and glanced over the content. It's an old photo album. Smells of old rot. Let's look at these pictures, don't we? I show the camera a view of the page's content. It has 4 pictures on the first page, all labeled by days. The first picture said day 1, the second day, day 2, and so on. The pictures were taken with an old Polaroid camera. There were pictures of airplanes, random suitcases, couple of taxis, and some pretty shady motels. Looks like someone's old travel photos. I continue flipping through the pages. Every day was a different photo of nature, or cars, or trains. Day 18 held the oddest photo yet. It was just a mask, handcuffs, a gag, and a bottle of some sort of drug it looked like. These people have one hell of a fetish. I try to keep the video interesting. I zoom into the picture with a camera, so everyone can see it. Around day 32, things started getting really weird. There was a picture of a house, but not just any house. It was a house I grew up in. My parents' house. My hand covered my mouth as I gasped for air. How is this possible? I'm unable to form a sentence. I'm at a loss for words at this point. Day 33, I turn the page and see a man and a woman handcuffed and gagged. I immediately expel the contents of my stomach as I see my own mom's scared and crying face, and my dad. Face first in a pile of what looks like black tar. Day 34. This photo is taken inside what looks like a vehicle. I focus my gaze on the dashboard, where a small photo is barely visible. It's an old school photo of me. They're in my dad's truck. Day 35. Another house, but this one's much smaller. The photo is too blurry to make out the details. My hands are trembling, and all I can hear is my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I flip to the last page. I immediately throw the book to the ground and run to the window. I jiggle the hatch frantically and throw it open. Without hesitation, I jump out and run to the neighbors. As I'm running, I turn around for a brief second. What I saw haunts me to this very day. A tall, hooded figure stood in my room, looking at me through the window. He stood motionless before lifting his hand and waving. I screamed for my neighbor, who hurried me inside and called the cops. I sat and just cried. I cried out of fear for my life. I cried for my parents. I cried because it was all my fault. My lack of common sense got my parents hurt, and I will have to live with that forever. If you access the deep web, do not release any personal information, even if people on YouTube do it. Most of it's not real, and always check your boxes. It would have saved me a lot of trouble if I would have noticed the box I received had no tracking sticker on it. It was hand-delivered itself. A little backstory of when this happened. I was 22 years old and had just graduated from college with a bachelor's degree in computer programming and was feeling like a hotshot. I moved into a nice little studio apartment, which was actually a motel room at one point, before the apartment company took over and did renovations. The area was nice, with lots of trees, beautiful views, and a small river that ran behind the apartments. Being situated 10 miles outside of the city meant that there were not that many people who frequented our area. But I was glad of that, as it would be nice to have some peace and quiet to focus on my programming and web design skills. I remember hearing everyone in high school and college rambling about being in the deep web, or dark web as you may say. The uses are actually quite interchangeable. However, they also are two very different parts of the internet as a whole. You have the clear net that can be accessed by anyone with an internet connection and search engines such as Google. Then you have the deep web, which is the greater part of the internet that is hidden and cannot be accessed without a special program or browser such as Tor. And finally, part of and inside of the deep web, you have the dark web, or even dark net, where most of the horrific stories you hear about take place. Hearing all these stories from either friends or from reading of them online over the years intrigued me and set me on the career path that, at the time, I thought I truly wanted. Now, not so much. My goal was simple: to create a program that would run without the use of a script, that would actually be disguised as a picture profile. If someone opened the file, then my program would execute and be able to look directly into the computer system full log records, and would be able to sniff out the original IP address of the affected computer, as well as any personal information such as names, birthdays, credit card numbers, etc. Now I know what you are thinking. I was definitely up to no good in creating a program like this, but you would be completely wrong. After hearing some of the truly horrifying people that hide in the dark web, and seeing as many of the stories end with these same never getting caught, I could not fathom why anyone made a program to catch these people. I worked out how I could catch these people, think alike, and to pretend to be one of those people. When I had finally compiled the program, compressed it down to less than 1 megabyte, and disguised it like a picture profile I planned to use, I was already ready to test it out. I pulled out my old junky laptop that I used for school. The thing was a pure piece of shit, and the perfect test bed for anything that I created. I connected the laptop to the internet, and created a test email and sent the file. I had to test different methods of delivery, so I also used a private Dropbox so I could test email delivery and opening, direct placement from a flash drive, and the big one that I was counting on, downloading the file and opening it from the internet outside of email programs. When all three methods worked, and started to send the data to my main desktop in the form of updating notepads, I jumped for joy. I thought to myself, so, basic IP and personal information sniffing works. What about if they are pros, using multiple VPNs and the likes? I installed 2 separate VPN programs on my test laptop, and even connected to a proxy server through them to test the results. They still came back to the same, just showing the additional IP addresses from the VPN. I was now ready to hunt these people down. My studying school paid off, having allowed me the knowledge to be able to create this amazing tool. I would make my own show like Chris Hansen's, To Catch a Predator, but mine would be called To Catch a Weber. Yes, my ego was extremely high at the time, but I could not celebrate. Not until I knew that it 100% worked without a doubt against a third party. This is when things really began to get interesting. I had Tor, and the hidden wiki opened up, my VPN fully configured, and I was ready to go. I wanted to get to the dark web, and most people find it by clicking something randomly. I selected a random site from the hidden wiki to begin my journey. Just a basic news board, basically spreading support to those who are oppressed around the world. I clicked on another link, and it took me to a blank page. I waited a few seconds, and still nothing, so I went back and tried another link. This one took me to some jewelry site. After reading some, I noticed at the end of each ad boasted about the jewelry being stolen from graves, fresh and old, some being claimed to be thousands of years old. Like most sites on the deep web, Bitcoin was the currency in use of the website. I saw enough there and was about to go back and try another link when a chat popped up with a generic name, admin, followed by a message. Hello, welcome to our site. Everything here is 100% authentic, antique, and unique. Is there anything specific you are looking for today? I must admit, I wasn't caught off guard at all. With normal online stores, this is pretty standard protocol. I typed out my reply confidently. You know, I was actually just looking for your selection. So much to choose from. It's a little overwhelming, and I am just mainly browsing. Which literally took 5 seconds. I had a reply from the admin. We'd look forward to seeing your purchase. Please let us know if we can assist you any further. Okay, now that seriously took me back. They told me they look forward to seeing my purchase. Fuck, that I clicked out without even replying. I had double-checked my setup, and I was still 100% anonymous. My VPN was still working, so that eased my paranoia. I clicked another link, and this time I was taken to a black web page with white text in the center. I could not read the text. In fact, when I looked closer, it didn't even look like any real writing at all. I clicked it, and a box popped up asking for what I'm assuming was login information. Obviously, I didn't have that, but oddly enough, yet another chat box popped up, and I just see, I got you. Info started being entered into the first box. The next screen I see is white, with what appeared to be a directory of many different areas. The chat box appeared again, and read, Enjoy and behave. I have no clue who that was, or where to even start in the directory. I know there are so many horrible people hiding on the dark web, but I wanted to stop the killers more than anything else. I heard so many stories of red rooms and people being kidnapped and used for other pleasures and dying horrific deaths, and I had to help stop that. I was on a mission. I clicked a random link, and the page slowly loaded. There were 3 different pictures displayed: a storm, a green pasture and sunlight, and a knife. Obviously, I clicked on the knife and was loaded into the dark web equivalent of a sick and sadistic Instagram of death. I saw one picture of an older guy laying on a couch with a gag in his mouth titled, Vomit Death. A small description said the poster thought it would be funny to watch their friend drowned in their own drunken vomit. They went on to brag about how the gag relieved them from any legal responsibility in the death because it was deemed a stupid drunken game. I wanted to nail that dude, but continued on. Another image was of a young girl, probably early 20s, hanging from a tree with the title, At Death I Part. The small description read, You wanted till death do us part, now you have it, and I'm free. This one confused me then, and still does now for a couple reasons. Was this a suicide or a murder, and who posted it? The next picture I saw really caught my eye. It looked like one of those pieces of jewelry I had looked at on the jewelry site. A bracelet. In fact, the very one. The exact one that prompted the chat log to pop up. At this point, I knew better than to click on it, but I was also arrogant in my ego and had full confidence in my program. I clicked the picture. This time there was a small handwritten note in the picture. Hello, we need your business. You did not make a purchase. After reading that, and feeling my heart practically stop, I was then automatically redirected back to the jewelry site and looking at the same damn bracelet. Immediately, the chat box popped up with the admin and read, We knew you would be back to make your purchase. I did not even know what to say before they added, The site you were just on is also run by us. We helped you log in so you could get a small taste of our different varieties of content. Access is subscription-based, and you pay for access by buying our jewelry. Furthermore, if you do not make a purchase, then we will restrict further and future access to our sites, as well as release your browsing habits to your family and friends. You have 10 minutes to decide. I simply reply, Searching is not a crime. I did not find much value in your other websites. I have seen better, and I don't wear jewelry, so, sorry, no sale. I felt like a smug bastard knowing they couldn't know who I am personally, or even track me, but the reply got me shocked. Whatever sites contain the content you viewed is all under us. You don't know what you are getting into or how big our business is. Simply make a small purchase, and we can move on. I get aggressive sales tactics, but this takes the cake in being intertwined with blackmail and extortion. I wouldn't have it, and replied, I refuse to be blackmailed or extorted by people or entities claiming to have false information on me. Unlike you people, I have proof of a better site that does not strong-arm their users. You cannot provide any information to me, about me, like I'm sure you can others, and you know this. The admin typed back, You have no proof. You are probably some kid acting out. Tell you what, show me your proof, and I will show you mine. Arrogant, and with the time I had waiting for having arrived, I uploaded the image to a secure site and messaged them when it was done. I did not get a reply right away, but after about 3 minutes, I knew they opened the image, thus executing the hidden program, because I started getting a plethora of log updates. This happened for about 5 minutes before the logs stopped updating, and another 5 minutes before the admin finally came back and said, I thought you had proof of a better site than ours, James. Truly I am disappointed, but not surprised. No site tops what we provide as a whole, and you do not even understand how deep things go. As for the picture of your cat, very sneaky, but you did not consider your one serious flaw. That anyone with knowledge of how your little toy works can reverse engineer it, dismantle it, and can find where the information is being sent to. You are in a very nice, secluded area, and easily traceable. Unlike me, who is operating under many different aliases, stolen identities, and on throwaway laptops. I could be mobile in a matter of seconds, gone without a trace. Let me share a couple of things with you to help you make the wise choice in your situation. Our image site of the deceased that you saw and clicked through. Well, some of those people are people who became an issue. And their jewelry, one of the millions of pieces we have available currently on top of what we have collected over the years. Now, are you going to make your purchase? My jaw hit the floor. I was freaking speechless, and this lunatic was absolutely right. I did not account for being backtraced through my own program because of my arrogance. Not to mention the fact that if you were really using multiple identities, tracking down the perp just isn't going to happen. I couldn't reply. I was frozen in fear when another bit of text popped up in the chat box. James, I know you are still there. Just make a purchase, James, and we both disappear afterwards and have no further contact. I don't want to send my associates to you. You haven't truly insulted us yet. Just make a purchase, and this can all be done. Don't spit in the face of our work. I slammed my laptop to the ground and started stomping it out, like the scene in Office Space where they beat the crap out of the printer. Pieces were flying all over the place, and it was just an unrecognizable pile of metal and bits. I was on a month-to-month lease at the time and moved out the next day to another place in the city. It was more expensive, and the location sucked, but knowing I had lots of others around me constantly made me feel safe, and it still does. That was 3 years ago, and I'm still living in the place I moved to after this happened. I have since stuck to web design and have stayed far away from the deep and dark web. Nothing has come of this that I know of, but they could still be out there, watching and waiting, and then I may become part of their content for all I know. For the sake of your safety, and everyone else's around you, do not go to the deep web. That was my mistake. Don't make it yours.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night, and I'll see you next time.